I didn't have a visa. I didn't have an income. And he was like, I can't pay you and I don't know how we're going to get visas, and I was like, I'll do it. We really believe in what we're doing. But yeah, it's super challenging to raise money on an idea. Every day is different. There's Eduardo and I just joke about like the zigzag of life that is the entrepreneurial world. Literally, it's just like straight up and straight down in one day sometimes.
First you got to define the what, but then once you know the what, you can come up with the how and the when. I mean, if I would have known how long it was going to take, I would have probably not done it.
Hello guys, and welcome back to Relevant Founders, brought to you by Relevant Software. Relevant is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers world-class standard products for Fortune 500 companies and promising startups. Today with us, guys, we've got two people on the show, co-founders Eduardo and Tamara of the Smart Container Company. Tamara, if you would start for me.
Sure. So we are an IoT startup, which is Internet of Things. We are focused on the draft beer supply chain at the moment. So the advancements to that industry have been quite limited, even though it's one of the largest industries in the world, one of the oldest industries in the world. So we're taking the keg, which is the most sustainable packaging option for delivering beer. It's a circular economy asset. It's long-lasting life. So we are leveraging that and adding technology to it. So connecting the beer keg to the internet to be able to deliver transparency and insights, better operational efficiency, sustainability for the industry. So there's a lot of improvements that we can make using our technology.
Nice. Cool. Tell me, I'm glad you explained keg as well. I'm not sure this is like more of an American term because I searched it when I was looking at your company before, and I searched it and I thought, oh, I'm not sure that's American, but keg tracker, yeah? So you've got your keg tracker, which we'll go into more detail about a bit later on. Eduardo, if you could just explain to our listeners as well, we've got a whole range of different listeners. Yeah, we've got from startup founders, we've got from engineers, we've got from people who are looking to come into the industry. Tell me, so Tamara mentioned there IoT. Yeah, what is IoT? Why is it so useful right now?
Well, the Internet of Things is it's just a broad term for connecting objects to the internet. Things, it means literally things. So objects that are opaque, objects that such as a chair, a lamp, a thermostat, a sensor on a pipe, all this information, what it helps us do is, now that we're in 2022, the internet is widely available, batteries have improved over the course of the year, and the cost of electronics is certainly low. We're now in a position in which we can start doing these things in an economically viable way of connecting them to the internet. So like Tamara said, for us, I mean, our current use case is just draft beer kegs, but having knowledge of all this information really, I guess, help us achieve the next generation of supply chain optimization and digitization. Some people like to call this Industry 4.0. It's the next generation, I guess, after, you first had the first industrial revolution when the printing was discovered. Then second generation was when people discovered combustion, right? There was a new amount of technologies that evolved. Third generation was when like the internet became available. That was in the early 2000s. And now we're at the fourth generation where 5G is available everywhere. And, we're now talking about self-driving cars. We're talking about flying cars. We're talking about, AI, machine learning, and things like that. So this is the fourth industrial revolution. The Internet of Things is a subset of it.
So both co-founders, how did you find each other?
Well, it's actually a good story. Eduardo and I actually knew each other already from New York from like 15 years ago. It's a large number, I hate to say out loud, but true. So we share a lot of mutual friends. And I had heard that he had left New York for Wales at some point to start a company focused on beer and technology. And I remember thinking that that was so random that he had ended up in the UK. And then about a year later, I was in London, and I was working on an app at the time that had just failed. And Eduardo reached out to me and asked me what I was up to. And yeah, we ended up meeting up, and he explained to me what he was working on, and I was incredibly impressed and interested. And so that's what brought us here.
Interesting. And Eduardo, why London? So I'm sorry, why the UK? So Tamara said that you went to Wales. Why did you think about the UK for your next?
The US, for the industry that we're in, the US is probably the most complicated ecosystem where we could, in theory, want to launch our product at. So unlike the UK, where, like, let's say a large brewery like Heineken owns all its distribution, owns its kegs, but also owns the pubs. In the US, there's something called a 3-tier system, which is something that arose out of prohibition. Again, the US is the only country that had prohibition back in the 1920s. Once they allowed alcohol back in the market, what the government wanted to do is allow it in a sort of like a thoughtful, controlled manner. So what they did is they set some regulation in place where brewers cannot distribute their beer and they cannot sell it either. So since our technology interacts with all 3 parties, it's just a lot more difficult to get all parties involved to do a pilot or get them to purchase the technology, versus here in the UK, the market is a lot more consolidated. Let's say like the top 20 largest breweries own almost 90-something% of the market share. Over there, in order to try it, we have to do 3 to the 3rd power in order to get someone to agree to do a pilot. Here in the UK, or actually the rest of the world, it's usually just one party we have to deal with.
The UK just also, draft beer, ale, it's just like very embedded into the culture. And so it's a great place to start a company such as this. And then the ability to expand, once you've had some success and you've gained some sort of reputation as a brand into other markets, even such as the US, becomes more simple.
Yeah, that is correct. Keg usage in the US is not very high. It's most beer is drank using single-use containers, which bottles and cans. So in a way, that's kind of like why we started the company, to encourage more use of the keg, so that people just use less of those single-use containers. It's important to highlight that, like, the carbon emissions used from using the keg is 10 times and 20 times less than using a bottle and can, respectively.
Tell me, Eduardo, there, just quickly on this, is it something that interested you before when you were in the US? I mean, this is a very kind of niche market. Is it something that interested you specifically, this industry, or was it something that you just saw an opportunity, or is it something that you had like a interest in before?
Well, I mean, Tamara and I, we both have friends that are in, I guess we're both foodies. We're both beer aficionados. We do like to be social. So definitely, I mean, at least for me, it was something that I was interested in. I'm an ex-strategy and technology consultant. So for me, I was typically advising banks or advising Unilevers or conglomerates such as that. The move towards, I guess, the creation of the smart container really sparks from, I guess, an interest in entrepreneurship and an interest in, I guess, doing a project in a sector where not a lot of innovation currently exists, as Tamara said earlier.
Nice. Okay, cool, guys. Right, let's get on to our 10 main questions, which we're going to cover today. Tamara, we're going to start with you. How did you guys come up with the company name? Was it one of these things that took a long time, or was it just something, boom, we know what we want?
Well, it was originally called F&W Insights, actually. So food and wine insights. And so that just shows you the evolution of the original concept to where we are today. So like Eduardo mentioned, a shared, enjoyment of the hospitality sector, and an interest in wastage, namely solving for waste in that industry. So it was originally, the focus was on sort of smart objects in hospitality, and then the more research that Eduardo did into that particular sector, the more he realized he was being pointed behind the bar. And then, the obvious use case became the keg out of all these single-use bottles. So once that was identified, the name had to change because it was no longer, aligned. So, we spent some time on it, and we threw around a lot of ideas, and ultimately, like, it does what it says on the tin. So Smart Container Company, the reason, generically calling it a container is because there's other use cases aside from beer that we can adapt the technology for. So there's so many different liquids traveling in kegs these days because of the sustainable element of bulk. So, and then there's other container types that we'll be able to do it for. We've already been approached by a number of different industries, healthcare, oil. So we wanted to keep it somewhat generic. And then Keg Tracker is the product, that we're working on right now. So we can have the umbrella of the Smart Container Company and then several products that are more specified.
I think, I guess it comes back to people are quite reluctant to change until they see that it helps. And at the beginning, people don't know how to change. But once they see other people doing it, they've got to jump on the bandwagon, basically. Otherwise, they'll be left behind. Okay, next question for you, Tamara. When was it that you both kind of had this eureka idea? What was this moment that you sat down together and you thought, this is going to work?
I guess there isn't one specific moment. I mean, as I said, so Eduardo had been working on the company probably like 9 months in R&D before I joined. But, I worked in VC like 10 years ago. I sat down across from him, sort of not sure what he was going to tell me, what he was working on. So for me specifically, it was that moment sitting with him when he explained to me, the concept, the technology. I don't know, I guess I was sort of expecting that he was going to say something that I wouldn't find to be really a problem that existed that needed to be solved. Because, there are a lot of companies that you're kind of just trying to create something that looks like a solution for a problem that doesn't necessarily exist. So I was really excited when he explained the concept behind what he was working on that first time that we sat down together, which, is a huge reason that I decided to join. I mean, I didn't have a visa, I didn't have an income. And he was like, I can't pay you, and I don't know how we're going to get visas, and I was like, I'll do it. So you have to sort of really believe to put yourself in that position. But yeah, and as I said, it evolved from the name to a few other things, but I think the way that it's come together is also a testament to how Eduardo and I work together really well and balance each other well. And I think rather than one eureka moment, it's just been a bit of a puzzle piece that's been fit together well.
And I know how difficult it is to get the visa in the UK as well. So obviously that was a challenge and a hurdle that you had to overcome. Eduardo, what about for you? Was there a moment, or was it pretty much the same? So it was this kind of puzzle together which you both have created.
Well, we went through multiple prototypes and multiple ideas before we got to this. The I guess eureka moment was really because we were at some point trying to do scales to measure like the liquid coming out of the kegs and connecting them to the Wi-Fi. But it wasn't until, someone said, well, you know what, Eduardo, like, you guys are all pretty smart here. The scale is not really that sexy. And someone said, well, why don't we try to make the keg smart instead? And that was sort of like, wow, that sounds actually pretty cool. Making the container smart, we're not just focused on selling something to hospitality, but something to anyone that touches the container. So it changed our entire value proposition from focusing on wastage at the pub to selling market intelligence to the brewer
Nice.
so that they can sell more product and package their products in a more conscious, sustainable way.
How did you go about finding your initial funding? Hard task.
Funding of accelerator and family and friends. So it's through our and a lot of sweat equity.
A lot of, say it again?
A lot of sweat equity, a lot of I guess a lot of working for free for the first year and a half.
Yeah, there were a lot of people that volunteered or, devoted time that they certainly didn't have to.
What is the challenges that come with that? Is that difficult to ask your friends and family to trust in you to build this thing which you don't know if it's going to work yet? How do you overcome that?
Well, generally the people who put money in early days are supporting a person, right? So when it comes to friends and family, it's those people that really believe in you. And obviously it comes with a little bit of insecurity on our part, like, people are taking a risk on us. But again, if you have the conviction, and we were taking risks, obviously, of our own as well, the goal is to make your friends and family a lot of money. And, we really believe in what we're doing. But yeah, it's super challenging to raise money on an idea, certainly in the very beginning. And then as it becomes more and more tangible, the pressure becomes no less, but you have people that are more interested and more willing, a couple of people to make that commitment for other people to show up and say, yeah, actually, I can see why this would make sense. And
yes, it's a lot of pressure as well, because it's not just the pressure of you guys having to make it work, but it's the pressure of your loved ones, your family as well, to make it work, which must be a difficult thing. How do you deal with the pressure?
I mean, confidence and just being completely tenacious, because every day is different. There's Eduardo and I just joke about like the zigzag of life that is the entrepreneurial world. And literally, it's just like straight up and straight down in one day sometimes. And you just have to be able to grin and bear it and push through to the other side and just know that, you're working towards something that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Like every time we have a down, it's like, oh, okay. Yeah.
We've been here before.
Yeah. It's expected to have that down end of the world moment.
To be fair, Eduardo's calmer about those things than I am, but
practice yoga and meditation. That's my answer to your question.
What do you do when you have that zigzag and you are down? What do you do? Do you go back to the drawing board? Do you plan it out, or do you just write it out? How do you approach it?
For me, I guess it's similar to what I had today, Tamara, with the team. Is well, I'm a planner, I'm a project manager, and I'm a strategy guy.
Oriented.
So for me, I just we have a problem. If we just know, I mean, that's having a problem is just have problems all the time. But having a solution and coming up with the solution, then tracking against the solution, and defining the how. First you got to define the what, but then once you know the what, you can come up with the how and the when and the who. So once we set all those things, align the rest of those questions, that's when you start feeling better, because now you're making progress towards a goal in a thoughtful manner.
It's a lot of Gantt charts, plans, actions, timelines. It's calming in its own way, just because you have a person assigned to each task working towards whatever the goal is in the moment in time.
Tell me, guys, this is a question from both of you. Tell me, obviously, nowhere near, you're only in the starting blocks really at the moment of your company, of your startup, if you can call it a startup, after around 4 years. Tell me, what has been the biggest lesson you have so far learned, which you didn't know at the beginning? Eduardo, let's start with you.
I guess for me is first of all, we're still a startup because of the space that we're in. We're a very R&D intensive company. So we're just exiting R&D. Like, we're just putting our first product out in the market at the moment for trials at the end of this year. I mean, if I would have known how long it was going to take, I would have probably not done it. Like I said, it's been 4 or 5 years into this, and the product's still not out. But that's because that's just how long it takes to bring all these type of hardware robotics products into the market. There's a lot of in the UK they use universally, people use a life cycle of that's called technology readiness. For hardware companies, it's usually like 5+ years to do the full, from inception to fully working product.
When we first engaged the hardware design team, when we already had all these plans laid out, the technology had been sort of working in a test environment, you just can't anticipate that it's going to take many, many years. But at the same time, we're now at this exciting moment where it's, you know, all about to sort of come to fruition. So patience is key, and that's been a huge lesson. And I think that just kind of dials back to what we were talking about before with all the ups and downs, tenacity and patience. And, you know, a lot of people give up, and it's understandable. It's not easy to get through to the other side. And I think I have so much respect for all the companies that have managed to commercialize and have paying clients, and where, you know, they started similarly to us with literally nothing.
What has this success, what has this challenge, you know, all of this time that you've put towards creating the smart container company, what has it cost you? Not money-wise, what has it cost you personally? Every success comes at a cost of something, whether it's friendships, family, free time. What does it cost you?
Well, I don't really see it that way. I mean, I think financially, probably it has. But I see it as what it would cost me to not be doing it, I guess, which is why I'm doing it.
Nice. Eduardo?
For me, I mean, financially, these first few years, but we're usually all in debt, and, you know, don't have a lot of money to spend, but we have equity, so that's good. But what has it cost me? I'd say some gray hairs and some extra pounds.
Hey guys, it's me again. If you enjoyed this episode of the show, be sure to press the thumbs up button below. And also, whilst you're there, hit subscribe. Otherwise, you could miss out on all of our interesting content we've got coming your way in the near future. Okay, guys, take care and see you soon.